I'm talking about straining for that logo on the side of your helmet and not the name on your back.
Yes, sir.
Because we know what it represents. It represents everybody here you see and everybody you can't that we've talked about. I'm here to strain with you, men. I swear to God, I'm here to strain with you. Let's go. Everything you got, strain with everything you got. Let's go. Bills on 3. 1, 2, 3. Bills.
You're listening to the Off Tackle with John Fina show with your host, Joe Miller. Well, what is going on, everybody? Welcome everybody into the Off Tackle with John Fina show with me, your host, Joe Miller, who you can find on Twitter at Joe Miller Wired, even though I can't currently log in to Twitter on my iMac. I have no idea what's going on. Been logged out of everything. But it's good to have you post 2023 Buffalo Bills draft with me, Joe, and that guy over there, John Fina. John, introduce yourself.
Hey, it's me. It's John Fina. Number 70. What else I got? Former Buffalo Bill, 10 years in the Queen City, friend to Joe Miller, aficionado of all things food, football, and beverage. Here I am.
And both of us drinking bourbon tonight. Cheers, John.
Yeah. Cheers to you. I'm drinking a Widow Jane.
I'm nowhere near as fancy. I've got some fancy stuff upstairs. I just poured a glass of Bullet. I was like, easy.
You know, I have a good friend who's a total bourbon head. Is that a thing? Bourbon head?
Is that a thing?
Yeah, it's a thing now. And I'm like, I just go to the store and I'm like, just take a picture of the bourbon wall. And I'm like, tell me what to get. And I picked up a couple of bourbons. They're fantastic. This
Nice.
Widow Jane is one of them.
Well,
but I'm not like I'm not an aficionado, but this is pretty good. A little sweetness, but really nice smoke on it. I think you would enjoy it.
You're going to have to send me a list of stuff to buy as far as
Okay.
it goes. But ladies and gentlemen, welcome into the Off Tackle with John Fina show. So good to have you guys with us here for episode number 3 of the 2023 draft 3-episode series draft special for the Buffalo Bills for the Off Tackle with John Fina show. John, what does watching the draft do? I know the whole thing is different now, to include, weren't there like 75 rounds when you were drafted? It was like
there were 750 rounds. The draft ended in June. It was the craziest thing.
I think my cousin got drafted once and he was like 12 years old.
Yeah, they were importing players from Bulgaria. They ran out of college players.
Exactly. But when you watch the draft, I guess question number 1 would be, when you watch the draft, does it take you back to those moments? As far do you want to go? I don't know how many new listeners we have. Do you want to tell your draft story?
No. I've told it a lot. I'll just keep it short. I wasn't really expected to be a higher early round draft pick. So my parents planned a trip months before the draft was even scheduled. And they were in Portugal the day I was drafted, and they were calling their friends. What happened? What happened? And they told them, so they got to celebrate on that continent and I got to celebrate on ours. It was pretty wild. I didn't have any thoughts that I would go before probably the 3rd round. So I was sleeping in. I might have had 1 or 2 of these the night before. And the day before, I went out and played 18 holes of golf and went like an idiot chasing a ball into the desert up in North Scottsdale and damn near turned my cankle and broke my leg. My agent was screaming at me. He's like, "What are you doing, you idiot? Get the hell out of there. You get bitten by a snake, fall in a cactus. Your career will be over before it even starts."
Right.
So it was a great feeling. They finally rousted me. I went downstairs, I think at about pick 15. And, I was just trying to stay calm, right? Because you get too excited, and then your disappointment is even greater, right? So I would always and that's sort of my personality, just kind of approach things, very methodically, soberly at that point, and then just wait to be surprised. And I was pleasantly surprised. It was awesome.
Did they fly that?
And now, no, they didn't fly us out like they do then. They get a call, the next couple of days and say, "We got a ticket for you to come to mini camp. It's not like it is now where you fly in on the Pagula jet, you land, they probably cover you in sweats and hats, ball caps and shoes. And no, it wasn't like that. In fact, my first day of mini camp practice, I was wearing like 14-year-old champion sweats that like chafed all the hair off my legs. It was a different deal back then, man, but it was still unbelievable, like surreal, unbelievable.
So does watching the draft, when you sit down and watch it now, does it take you back to any of that time? Like that feeling, that emotion again, when you got the call?
For sure. And for two reasons. They got the guys there in Kansas City. So the cameras on them. How many cameras must they have had to have there? Like 60, right? 60 guys show up or more. I mean, just on the players and their families.
I think it's 20. 20 guys get it, but yeah.
All right, that's pretty good. So, man, just seeing the joy on their face when that phone call comes in, that never changes. You can always insert yourself back into that. And then when they have guys at home, where the family's videoing them, and their families are surrounding them. That's a little bit like what happened to me. It was pretty wild. And so everybody knows you're on the phone, and everybody in the room is like, "Oh my God, what's going on?" And they assume it's the next pick, of course.
Right.
But then everybody kind of just goes silent and they wait for that pick to be announced, and then the room just explodes. It's incredible.
That's cool. That's a lot of fun. Well, awesome. Thank you for sharing that draft experience. I have no experiences like that. I have no experiences where I've sat around with bated breath waiting for somebody to call me to invite me into their life and pay me a lot of money. So it's never happened to me. So I'll live vicariously through you and your memories, if that is okay, John Fina.
You're welcome to vicariously live in my head and my heart. Although, a word of warning.
Uh-oh, here it comes.
Yeah, that's it.
just word of warning.
Word of warning. Look out.
Blank. Just fill in information here. It's good to have everybody with us, and there's way too many people now in the comment section for me to even begin to like calling people out. How
cool is that?
Other than my mom. My mom is in the room, but she's a pretty faithful watcher. But mom is in the room. So mom, welcome, love
Bonnie.
You. But it is good to have everybody. So the draft is in the books. The Buffalo Bills have completed the draft, as have all of the other NFL teams in round one. And we'll go through these kind of individually, but I just want to throw them out there for those maybe if they haven't heard. Round one, the Buffalo Bills took tight end out of Utah, Dalton Kincaid. I have a funny story about the word Utah, but that's enough for another day. In the second round, pick 59 overall, the Bills took Osiris Torrance, a guard out of Florida. Round three, pick number 91, they took Dorian Williams, a linebacker out of Tulane. Round five, pick 150 from Arizona, they got Justin Shorter, wide receiver from Florida. Round seven, pick 230, Neil Broker, an offensive guard from Ole Miss. So they actually took two guards in this draft. Which kind of lets you know what they feel about Spencer Brown, I would think, right off the top. You kind of know how they feel about Spencer Brown and starting as the right tackle this year. And then round seven, the last pick that they had, pick 252 overall, they took Alex Austin, a cornerback out of Oregon State. So first things first blush, John Fina, I'm gonna let you go first. What are your thoughts just on this draft, the players that they picked?
Oh, well, it just kind of depends on, you can look at the whole draft as names, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the biggest problem, Joe, is you missed one of the picks.
I did.
You didn't mention that pick. And in the 8th round, the 27th pick, the Finas picked Gigi, the miniature schnauzer puppy.
It looks like a cotton ball.
I know. She's a little cotton ball, man. We picked her up today. Look at Gigi.
Yikes.
Yeah. Hi, Gigi.
You're funny.
Welcome to the show. Okay. That was Gigi. 27th pick of the 8th round. Had to introduce Gigi. A lot of people were throwing names out there, and we selected Gigi. There she was. So going back to what you're talking about, you can look at the names, right? And where's your cutoff? Is your cutoff after round 3 for guys that you think will make the squad, make the roster? Or is your cutoff after round 4 and anything below that, 3 or 4, you're just hopeful that they're going to make the team?
Right.
So really you want to focus on those top 3 rounds, maybe top 4 rounds, and then be pleasantly surprised that you get someone who rosters in the later rounds and then is a huge contributor on special teams, or God, lo and behold, they're a great contributor within the offense or defense. So other than that, I have to say I'm overall pleased. I know there's a lot of talk about 2 picks that were made, and we can go through them one by one, and I think we should. And then when we get to those ones that are a little bit, I guess, Bills fan controversial, why don't you and I kind of talk it through? Okay, so
Sure.
let's start with Dalton Kincaid.
All right. So, well, do you want me to give you my overarching thought of the draft as well?
No.
Okay. So we'll start with
Dalton. I do. I'm just kidding. Go ahead.
I mean, for all intents and purposes, I agree with what a lot of the pundits have said, and a lot of people in the comments section have said that it was a solid draft. Now, at the end of the day, we're going to find out more by week 8, week 10, right? As far as what this draft is going to shake out like. People asked me leading up to the draft this year. I got tons of questions, whether on Twitter, in person, wherever I was. Joe, who do you want the Bills to take first, in the first round? Who do you want them to take in the second round? And to be honest with you, I said I didn't care. I don't care who the Bills take as long as they play. I don't care. Take whatever guy you want to take with whatever pick you want to take as long as they play. So that kind of removes this whole idea of like, well, we really need a wide receiver, or we really need an offensive tackle, or we really need a middle linebacker. It's great to take an offensive tackle, a middle linebacker, and a edge rusher if you think you need one, if they don't play in their rookie year. It's like, well, what was even the point of that? I felt like,
wow, you would have hated. Did you, when I got picked, did you hate that pick? You're like, oh my God, that's what a disaster.
The Bills were going to the Super Bowl. We had the opportunity to take luxury picks such as yourself, John.
I'm so luxurious. It's my skincare routine.
Are you using the Gillette razor that Josh uses? Is that why you look so good?
I do. No,
I do know. I'm trying to get us a sponsorship here, John. You're supposed to say yes. I love that razor.
I would absolutely 100% support Gillette razors. Welcome to the Off Tackle Show with Gillette razor John Fina.
Exactly.
So let me cut you off. Is that okay?
No, I didn't finish, but okay.
So I want to wrinkle that.
Okay.
With what you said. So we are actually in a situation which is not terribly different from when I played, where there is a little bit of luxury. Now, I like where your head's coming from, because I think the modern athlete are more plug and play, minus a couple of positions.
Right.
So by and large, I agree with you. By and large.
My only point is this, and I know that it's the exception to the rule. So right out of the gate, when I say the next line, that everybody that's listening to this show, whether on video or via podcast later in the week, they've all heard this. The Kansas City Chiefs last year drafted 7 players. 7 rookie Kansas City Chief players played in the Super Bowl. Now, I'm not saying that all the players need to play at the level where they're like full-time starters. I'm just saying this noise and this trash that we've had for the last 3 or 4 years, where we're drafting on potential, we're drafting on character, we're drafting on guys that are a little bit raw and rough, and someday might turn into something really, really good. We just don't live in that space. We didn't live in that space, in my opinion, in 2023. So for me to wrap all this draft up inside of, I need guys that are going to play. And when I look at this list, Dalton Kincaid, Osiris Torrance, Dorian Williams, which there's arguments out there on the internet as far as to whether or not he will be a special teamer or could play next to Matt Milano as a linebacker full time. Justin Shorter. When I see those 4 names, I see guys that are going to play and make a big impact right away. And to me, that was the most important part. So that's my overall first draft kind of synopsis. And yes, now we can go back and forth if you want.
All right, so you want them to be contributors, whether it's, they don't have to be a full-time starter in your opinion, as long as Shorter, Broker, and Austin, well, maybe not Broker, but Shorter and Austin and Williams are contributing on, 4 or 5 special teams and doing a good job.
I don't think they had the luxury of them not contributing. I think the Jets, the Jets got very good as soon as Aaron Rodgers showed up.
I agree. Okay. All right. So I don't disagree with you. Let's talk about Dalton Kincaid.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of people, when we talked about weapons for Josh, and some people got this. I admit I didn't. I wasn't thinking tight end, but I watched him because he was in the Pac-12, and the kid is amazing.
Mhm.
And I'm a little bit embarrassed that I didn't think to myself, well, a tight end is a weapon, right? I mean, there's a few of them in the league that are true weapons, and I guess I just didn't wrap my mind around it, but it does make sense. By having both of them, you can line up in 2 tight end sets. It protects the tackles a little bit more just by virtue of being on the end of the line and being visually disruptive to a defensive end. And then both DKs having the ability to work the middle of the field, and specifically for Dalton Kincaid to get a mismatch and go down the seam, right? So I think there's a really good moderate to deep threat ability with him, depending on how well we can get mismatches. So I like the pick. Shame on me for thinking weapon only wide receiver. Clearly, and this is what I've been saying for a long time, the guys at One Bills Drive know more than me.
Yeah, for sure.
And yeah, you a fan of the DK pick?
Very much so, for a number of reasons. Even when it started getting floated about a month and a half, 2 months ago, that the Bills might be in at tight end with their first pick, and there was a lot of mocks by the guys that do mocks, and I don't mean necessarily the guys like us that are content creators, like the national guys on ESPN and NFL Network that actually had Dalton Kincaid as the Bills' first pick at 27. I wasn't necessarily against it. It's clear, overwhelmingly clear, that the Buffalo Bills have been trying to do something the last couple of years, even going back to Lee Smith. They love that kind of sixth offensive lineman, big dude out there. They did it with Lee Smith, who actually went out and caught a couple passes. Tommy Doyle was kind of that guy. Then Bobby Hart when Tommy Doyle got hurt. It's obvious that OJ Howard last year, when they picked him up, it was pretty clear that that's what they wanted him to do, and they didn't feel like he was going to be able to do or execute for whatever reason what they wanted to execute. Obviously, he went to, I think, the Texans, right, and actually had a pretty okay year looking at what he did. So when I see Dalton Kincaid, I think the thing, there's an aspect of like, well, they're rookie tight ends. I know some guys might have preferred one of the other guys over Dalton Kincaid, some of the pundits, some of the experts, whatever. But when you hear that I can't remember, he's the best pass catching available player in the draft, that he was like, I can't remember what the number was, but when you consider that the Bills got the best wide receiver in the draft at 27, and he's a tight end that can also block, that can play in the middle of the field. I mean, Cole Beasley has made some comments on Twitter that have effectively said, I want to come back, but them drafting that kid pretty much makes it look like I'm not coming back, because they've got the guy that's going to play and like do that middle of the field thing. So I love this pick, the potential of this pick. I love that he's pro ready. He's ready to play, like out of the box. It's going to come down to, can Josh play football with 2 tight ends and keep his eyes on him, or is he going to be? No,
I think they're gonna. I think they're going to be able to work this beautifully, and I think it gives such a great, such a great wrinkle to play action. Now, I got a lot of crap on Twitter for saying great pick. You better block your ass off. However, I think a lot of people, when they think of offensive line blocking or tight end blocking, is just kind of straight ahead, dogfight, mash kind of stuff. That's not really the type of things that I'm interested in. I want somebody reliable on the backside that's going to be able to get to the far shoulder and cut off the pursuit angle. I want somebody on the front side to work schemes with the tackle. So I'm not talking about 2 guys mashing together. I'm talking about 2 guys meshing on a combination block, getting to the next level. And they haven't used Dawson that way, to be fair, but I don't know that he has that skill set. I think this kid is a little bit more capable of doing that. Yeah. But it's a great pick.
The hands alone, and we'll get more into that here.
One other point.
Yeah.
Because the Pac-12 after dark idea was so stupid, nobody in the East Coast watched a single Pac-12 game. And it's one thing to watch and look at the stats of what Kincaid did against USC, but I watched that game live, and that was extraordinary.
Yeah.
And they talk about catch radius, bailing your quarterback out, being able to turn your body in midair, contort yourself to put a hand on the ball, and the kid does all that.
Right.
And that, to me, watching that game, I was like, in my head, I'm thinking, There's one player on the field that's beating USC, and it was Dalton Kincaid.
Yeah. The only thing that concerns me about the hype of that performance in that game is it was one game. And Buffalo Rumblings own Bruce Nolan talks all the time that it's not about one time and it's not about two times. It's about, sustained success and how you're doing it. Are you continuing to do it over long stretches of time before you determine that this is something that you're good at? That's the only concern that I have, is that it was one game. Now,
sure,
why one game?
Sure, but we're talking about one of the premier West Coast college football teams. Okay, they're killing it year in and year out, and they have great weapons and they have great coaches. So to have one player take over any game for Utah is pretty damn impressive. They have a terrific running game. They've got historically maybe not NFL offensive linemen, but very good offensive linemen. So, I'm not too concerned about that. They've always had very good receivers. He fits really well as a team player. The opportunity came. He exposed the middle of the field against the Trojans. And as a lifelong hater of the USC Trojans, I reveled in that.
That's awesome. The next pick, the Buffalo Bills, round 2, pick number 59 overall, take O'Cyrus Torrence, and I've seen it spelled a couple different ways, Ocyrus, as well as I think I've seen it spelled with I's as well, which is a little strange. So like Ociris. So I'm guessing that the accurate spelling is Ocyrus. Thrilled with this pick for a number of reasons. My understanding is he has the potential, or has played center in the past. So that's a small, probably where I would start, that there's an opportunity maybe there to convert him to center if needed once Mitch Morse's contract is up in 2 years. The size, you got to love the size. You got to love and I know you've got some information for us in regards to him, which is why I'm going first. You just got to love what he brings to the team. And I can go through some of his draft kind of information real quick. I'm going to let you talk just about your thoughts on him and just some of I think you've got some stats. I think you've got some other things, information about him, don't you?
No, I don't.
Oh, I thought you had some like the fact that I think he only got penalized twice or something.
Yeah, like that. I saw that only 2 penalties, never gave up a sack, and then I saw somewhere that he gave up 2 sacks. To me, anything below 3 or 4 over the course of your career is shockingly good. So, and the penalty thing is huge, right? Don't hurt us, don't get beat, and don't jump off sides. When you talk about him playing at center, I would, in my mind, if Morse goes down, I think you see Bates go to center, right? And then Torrance goes in. But more importantly, we signed 2 guards in free agency.
Yeah,
we had 2 guards in the draft.
And we've got Ryan Bates plays guard.
and Ryan Bates plays
right now.
Exactly. So, wow. I mean, I'd love to go to every training camp right now. I mean, I'd be down with the offensive line just watching that. I'd love to be a fly on the wall. It's going to be, if Cromer doesn't have a meeting room competitive environment to go with the competitive environment that's going to occur physically, that's a missed opportunity. It's a battle. I mean, how many guards do we have now? I mean, it's close to 5 or 6.
Not all of them are going to make the team, that's for sure.
That's my point.
Yeah. So you almost got to wonder if it's a Connor McGovern and O'Cyrus Torrence that makes that become the starters. Does Ryan Bates move back into that rotational player, which then kind of puts Tommy Doyle on a little bit of a bubble? So it's going to be interesting to see how all of that somewhat shakes out. Concerns that I have about Torrence: we know his size, we know his character, we know his personality. We obviously have heard all the accolades about his play. One of the things that concerns me that I think is weird, because it's a little bit of although you've mentioned it many times, I was going to say it's a little bit of a turn from what I feel like the Bills have wanted. One of the negatives to his play is that he's not super athletic in the sense of laterally. He's not a big mover. He's more of an anchor than he is going to be a pin and pull kind of guy, right? Which you've made comments in the past that the Bills don't have the most athletic front. Meanwhile, I feel like they kind of pull more than most offensive lines do. So
I don't think I've ever said that. I'd like to review shows 1 through 40, please. Look, there's 2 ways to pull, right? You can kind of do a pull read, it's kind of a skip hop pull just across the center, read the opening. Are you going to go past the guard? Are you going to go between the center and the guard on the opposite side? And there's also a physical makeup of players that changes. I mean, these are babies, right? They're 22, 23-year-old kids. I don't have his age, but they're gonna get to the point where they're working with the training staff, and they're going to improve. And if we could do this kind of thing for a player in the 80s and change Bruce Smith from what he looked like when he arrived to the guy that was at superstar form in the middle of his career, guys will continue to develop physically. Now, I don't really think he needs it, but if you want to go to a big running scheme, fine. But as you've seen, when I played, you never saw a center pull. And they do a ton of that now because you see a 3 and a 1. So you'll get the guard pinning the one technique and the center pulling, and we've got guys that can do that. So I don't.
Mitch Morris is very athletic, right?
Yeah, I don't see a problem with that. But regardless, he'll get better. I just like the fact that they've got a guy, who, if he's groomed correctly and properly, we're going to be able to battle some of the 3 and 1 techniques that we have in our division.
Well, one of the comments about him is that he does a good job of using his strength to stop defenders in the pass rush. Torrance does a good job of handling the bull rush and shows to have the lower body strength to anchor down on defenders, stopping them from getting any penetration. This is from the Draft Network. One of the areas of concern they talk about is he's probably susceptible to twists and stunts because he doesn't have maybe that lateral quickness. There's a lot of I don't want to say misinformation, but kind of like when in his press conference and some of the other reports, he talked about the quickness of his feet, that his feet are always moving. In some of his draft reports, they talk about that he doesn't move his feet. So there's a great deal of like, okay, so which is it?
Well, so let me address the kind of lateral movement with twists and stunts kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
So if he's a right guard, he's virtually 18 inches foot to foot from the center. And if you have a guy that's coming inside, you're really talking about a pitter patter step. And the most important thing about trading a twist is that the defender is not into your body, right? So if I can keep him at distance, then I'm able to swap with the center. The center is going to slide onto my hip, or the tackle is going to slide onto my hip, and then the soft guy's going over the top. So really, it's when those tricks work really well, they get guys compromised because it's either half a man or their arms are collapsed, and we need long arm guys in the middle.
All I heard was you put your hand upon my hip, and when I dip, you dip, we dip. That's all
I love it. Is that a square dance?
It's a song of some sort. But no, super pleased with that pick as far as that goes. I think we all do at this point. I expect him to probably be a day one starter, right? The question is it going to be right guard? Is it going to be left guard? We know Ryan Bates played the right guard last year. We all probably would agree that he played better at left guard. And then there's the Connor McGovern piece, that I would think there's an expectation that he's going to start. So,
well, I think that's great, because what we did last year is we brought Roger Saffold in, and it seemed like it was a sort of heir apparent situation. And there wasn't a battle. I think I recall, for personal reasons, he missed some of training camp and what have you.
He had an injury.
Or an injury. Sorry. That's personal, I suppose, depending on where you get kicked. I'm all for the battle, man. I mean, they did it to me. They brought guys in and tried to, inspire me or push me out or do the heir apparent thing every now and again. And that was good for me. It's good. It's good for a player mentally.
Did it heighten up your level of competitiveness, or were you like, meh, it is what it is?
Maybe a little bit, but I'm a little different.
Yes.
No, I shouldn't say that, because I don't know. I can't climb into everybody else's head. But for me, I was always of the opinion, like, I should be at the top of my game anyway. Although everybody, has their moments, right?
Sarah, who is the Buffalo Rumblings expert at this point, says that, and I think he did play right guard in college. The only reason I say we were not sure yet is just because there's a great deal of this coaching staff feels like any guy across the offensive line can play anywhere. It's like we've talked. Jerry Ostrowski's talked with us that Reuben Brown has talked. Like, that's not really true.
No, it's not. It's not really true, but it's maybe it's generationally changing now, right? So I don't see a problem with working guys through at different positions, because in the event of a disaster, i.e. the cornerback situation on our defense last year, you're like plug and play and praying on
Right.
Sundays to make sure, these guys can do what you need them to. So I don't have a problem with that. But overall, great pick. And I'm looking forward to seeing some competition, some nasty. We need some nasty up front.
Yeah, agreed. Round 3, pick 91, Dorian Williams, linebacker out of Tulane. Thoughts?
Yeah. Okay. So, the only shot that I would have against Dorian Williams, right?
Yep.
Is if we're the middle linebacker thing. So there's kind of a 3-part answer. If you think that we needed a middle linebacker somewhere, then you're kind of like, what the heck did we draft a linebacker for if we couldn't get a middle linebacker?
Well, he is the middle. He's projected to play middle.
He's projected to play middle, but everybody's saying, well, he hasn't played there, or he's
Right.
he's a Matt Milano replacement, or so. The whole point of what I'm saying is there's more to the defense's evolution this year than you and I and everybody else is privy to. And if you're going to draft a guy who's, I don't know, is he questionably a middle linebacker? He wasn't highlighted as a middle linebacker.
Well, I mean, he's 6'1", 228. He ran a decent 40. He ran a 4.49. So he's super athletic. They talk about the length of his arms, but he's undersized as far as that goes. And I say that knowing that London Fletcher played middle linebacker for this football team, and then went on to the Washington Washington Commanders, and played there for a very, very long time. Like, had an incredible career. There's been short middle linebackers before.
Yeah, I mean, I don't consider 6'1" short.
Correct. Taller than me, right?
But there's talk about how well does he disengage, and if you look at it, the other option, if you passed on him or you reached, right, it was only 8 slots down, was Drew Sanders, who I liked as well. Taller.
Went after him, correct?
That's what I'm saying. You would have had, not trade up or anything, but you'd have plucked him 8 spots before you picked, which isn't acceptable, but they're virtually maybe the same player. So you go with the guy that you think is going to fit your defense. People saying it's the wrong pick because he's not an MLB. Well, maybe he's an inside linebacker, and the scheme changes to accentuate his abilities, which I think it has to change.
What's interesting about this, and I think I do now remember, Daniel Gowrie said that Bean said he will start off at outside linebacker. Well, we've been told for the last 4 years that there is no inside, middle, or outside linebacker on this football team. That Tremaine Edmonds and Matt Milano play effectively the same position in a nickel or two. So,
and I don't disagree with that. I really don't. I mean, I can tell you that at first blush, when you look at certain offensive sets, you're going to get Tremaine Edmonds in the middle.
Right.
But he played out in space a lot too. And by virtue of what the league is like now, with how much spread you see, how much pass when you traditionally might have seen run, a guy like Tremaine Edmonds, he may line up in that position, but how often is he 8 yards off the ball, protecting the curl in the option route?
Correct. I think the problem that I have with this pick, the only real problem that I have with this pick, is just that I feel like they could have moved back and got him.
Right. Or
third or fourth round draft pick, which, middle of the fourth. So do you scooch back, pick up a fifth, or pick up a sixth? Right. So go ahead.
Or to what you're saying is this a shot at Bernard? Is he not the guy? Because they're similar guys. But rather than dropping back and getting this same guy, the same position, whether it's, Drew Sanders or Dorian Williams, what about another position? What about a safety? And that jumps us ahead down to the last pick. But I don't know. I think this is, I'm not in the room, right? I'm not assessing the needs. I'm going to trust, but it's a head scratcher.
Yeah, for sure.
When there are other positions and other quality players out there, you might have said, this guy helps us more immediately.
Right. And he's clearly going to make a difference on special teams. Right now, AJ Klein, Terrell Dotson, and Terrell Bernard are your 3 linebackers who are the heir apparents to potentially one of those guys, or this guy is going to be the day one starter, right? In replacement of Tremaine Edmonds, which I don't know that any of us are looking at the 4 of them and going, yes.
Or remember historically when the Bills played and we were in a 3-4, Shane Conlon was not the guy you wanted on the field on 3rd and 8, right?
Right,
So
right.
if AJ Klein is your guy on 1st and 10 and then 2nd and 4 when you think it's going to be another run, maybe AJ Klein or Tyrell Dodson is your guy, or there you go, Balin Spector, whatever happens to Balin.
And I like
and then they come off the field in the long yardage or passing downs.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what happens. It's just, and sentiment has shown up in the comment section. It's just why this guy in this spot, right? You could probably get a guy like this with the same potential in round 5. You know what I mean? Like, so it's just, this was the only head scratcher to me. Yeah, why him here? He's the 91st best player in this draft. I'm not sure. Maybe he could surprise us. I'm just not sure.
Okay, fair enough. But I mean, I like what Buffalo Freddy said. And that's me. I want to come downhill. I want to distort, derange, destroy, and dismantle offensive sets. I want to be devastating up front. And we traditionally haven't been. We don't have a really exciting blitz game like some other teams do. So I agree with Buffalo Freddy on that one. Jerry Ostrowski chimed in and said, you know what? The guy can ball. And look, I mean, Christian Benford, right? What round pick was he?
6th
round pick.
Is that right?
Right.
6th.
If you had picked him in the 3rd round,
but this is the thing.
I'm just saying we don't know if this guy can do it. We're all going to be saying, "Wow, great pick." And if you contribute on special teams immediately and be a 3rd down player occasionally, then he fits the Joe Miller he has to play this year.
Here's the thing: the reality is, Williams can ball, says Jerry. And by the way, Jerry and I are going to do a special edition of the Overreaction podcast tomorrow live in place of this show on Monday night, because we're obviously live on Sunday night. But this is the argument for everybody? Oh, that player can ball. Well, all of them, first of all, can ball, right? So, and I'm going to love talking to Jerry about this. But here's the thing. As far as Williams goes, the Detroit Lions took Jack Campbell way too early. And that's based on what we like, all the measurements, all the scouts, all the things that we talk about. Same thing with this guy. Now, Jack Campbell, I got a buddy that I watched the draft with. He's a Detroit Lions fan. And he was upset that they took Jack Campbell. Was it 16 overall? And he's like, Jack Campbell's supposed to go mid-second. And the comment I made was, Jack Campbell could come in. We believe he's going to be a good player. He could play for the Detroit Lions for the next 12 years and have a great career. And you know what? The fact that you took him 16 overall makes sense. But it still doesn't change the projection. Could you have gotten him later and gotten a better player at 16 or moved out, right? And like got more capital? And I think that's the conversation. Williams probably can ball, but could they have gotten him 30 picks later?
Well, they didn't think they were going to get Dalton Kincaid 2 picks later, so they traded up for him.
They did.
They looked at the 4th and 5th or 4th and 6th rounds and said, there's nobody here that's super interesting to us, so we're going to trade back and load up for next year. So they're doing what you think. They may have thought that his value was going to be greater to another team.
Right.
Yeah. And Jerry's right. I always say, like, if I had to die and come back as a football player, the last position I would want to play is linebacker.
Right.
or the only position I would want to play is they expect you to fill, like Ted Johnson did and be a beast.
Right.
And then they expect you to run like a cornerback. I mean, forget all that. You're caught betwixt and between. So you're either the worst linebacker ever, or you've got like the best excuse.
Yeah.
That's a hard position.
Yeah, Sarah Larson makes a good point here. She says 4-3 guys all over the Finns and the Jets. We need faster guys all over the defense.
And that's what I was also.
But part of the negatives for Dorian Williams, as written by our own Joe Marino, who's a good friend of both of ours, he struggles with angles at times. So he might be fast, but if he struggles with his angles, we've seen that in Jaquan Johnson. We've seen that in a couple guys on this football team that don't understand angles and like get burnt anyway.
Hey, look, all right, fine. You want to go down that road, Joe? I'm going to tell you, there's a guy who we lost to Chicago, and in his rookie year, I was like, where's he going? Well, that's the wrong angle.
Right.
And now he's what is he making? 17 million a year, 21 million a year.
And he
plays for
still, and
Chicago
even
Bears.
last year, he struggled at times with his angles of pursuit. So, right.
Okay.
So it's just
Right. So look, and again, lucky 7, right? Craps, damn it.
Well, I mean, and the reality is I hope
and that's a reference. I'm going to Vegas tomorrow for work, so I'm thinking about.
I hope Dorian Williams makes me eat every word or every concern that I have.
Well,
right?
you feel that way about every pick, I hope. Otherwise, you're just evil.
Well, no, I mean, I don't necessarily feel negative even about the next one. In round 5, I'd pick 150, and this is the last one we're probably going to talk about for this show because we're running late on time already. From Arizona, which I'm guessing, or no, that's the draft. We traded for that pick from Arizona. Wide receiver out of Florida, Justin Shorter, who in my opinion is a bit of a highlight reel. And to me, the Justin Shorter pick, along with Dalton Kincaid. And I guess the question is how much do we buy into or ascribe to this idea that, teams can send a message to their team with who they draft? So last year, the Bills had a problem with drops. The last time they had a problem as bad as last year with drops was 2018. And what the Bills did was they basically got rid of every one of those guys for the most part. Duke Williams was in the practice squad, and Robert Foster may have been on the team in 19. I'm not sure. And went and got guys that could catch the football. Dalton Kincaid, we've already kind of established, had elite hands, the best hands of anybody in this draft. Justin Shorter, and this came from Greg from Cover One, also a very good friend of mine. He says, great hands at a 5.5% drop rate, 6 drops in 177 targets. So there's very much an onus, in my opinion, between those two picks that the Buffalo Bills are saying we have a problem. As much as Bills fans like to say, oh, it was just an off year for this guy or that guy, whatever, the Buffalo Bills said, no, we have to get better with guys that can catch the football. And Justin Shorter, like I said, is a human highlight reel. What's weird to me about this pick is some of the scouting reports say that he has a difficult time with separation. Meanwhile, I know they're highlight reels, but when you watch his film, he's open a lot.
Yeah, whenever I watch highlight reels like that, I'm always looking like, who are they playing? Are they playing East Valley, Tennessee Tech, things like that. I want to make a correction on what I said earlier. It wasn't Drew Sanders was gone by the time we got Dorian Williams. And I was saying if linebacker wasn't the position, we had Battle 4 picks later from South Alabama, or safety from Alabama. And that would have been like, well, what's the bigger position of need? And they went linebacker. So I apologize for that. My notes, I'm not wearing my glasses. But going to Justin Shorter, you said all the things that make sense to me. And again, this goes back to a guy who's shown those capabilities, who can grow a little bit more. But I'm looking at the frame. We haven't had that frame in a guy who's got that catch radius, who is as reliable, those 3 things together, until, hopefully this is the guy.
Right.
So if some people are concerned he can't get off the line, he can't come out of his breaks, he can't separate very well against higher quality opponents, that's probably a reason why he would be the 7th receiver. But I like the pick. And this may seem silly, but I like the pick because we have his teammate, and I think that camaraderie for those 2 guys will make sense. And by the way, it's not just those 2. We picked up a tackle from Florida also.
The undrafted free agent.
Right. So that's pretty cool, man. I mean, 3 guys from one team. That helps. It really does. Yeah, I know that when I was there and having Glenn Parker there, it meant a lot. When Deshaun Polk, linebacker from the University of Arizona, came to Buffalo, we had bond, and I helped that guy out, and we were close, and that mattered.
Yep. I don't have concerns over what Bruce Nolan calls verticality, because speed and verticality are 2 completely different things. Gabe Davis is not a burner. Meanwhile, Gabe Davis can get vertical and can get behind corners in the NFL a lot of times simply due to scheme that defenses play against wide receivers, wideouts, and wide receivers in general, as far as just how they're trying to cover. What'll be interesting to me is the wide receiver 7 piece. I've been vocal about not being sold on Khalil Shakir, even with Brandon Beane and whoever else doubling down kind of on Shakir and what their expectations are this year. I would tell you last year, I'm privy to a conversation that happened between a head coach and a wide receiver who said, we want you with Gabe Davis sliding into number 2. We want you to take that Gabe Davis slot this year. Are you ready? He said, yes. Well, they released him and he got picked up by another football team and played really, really well down the stretch. So I don't know that I buy into necessarily when coaches give coach speak and GMs give GM speak and what they think. I think he's got an opportunity on this football team to make some hay relatively quickly if he can show that he can be a reliable pass catcher on this football team, especially if there are struggles.
Well, struggles and injuries and, digesting what will definitely be new wrinkles in the offense. Adding Dalton Kincaid to this offense is going to change it. It's going to have to change the route tree. There's going to be some learning attached to this acquisition, 2 tight ends. If you're going to run that set a little bit more, it might actually reduce the number of reps. There'll be a little bit more competition between, 4 and 5 and 6 in the wide receiver room. And I'm all for that, as we've established, but I like the pick. I'm not looking at Justin Shorter and saying somebody else has got to go. I'm looking at Justin Shorter and saying he adds a dimension that we don't currently have and provide some competition.
Yeah, for sure. I like this pick a lot.
I do too. Yeah.
I like what it brings to the offense. It's clear that the Bills, Sean McDermott, I don't think were we doing this show when Sean McDermott called his wide receivers Smurfs, John Brown, Cole Beasley, like all the short guys they had. That was that was when they brought in all those guys that could catch. The Bills, it seems like, have made a determined effort to get bigger, like at the pass catching. So right now your shortest wide receiver is, I think, Khalil Shakir, right?
Yeah,
Kenzie's gone, Beasley's gone. Yeah.
No, Khalil Shakir is 5'10", right? 5'9",
yeah,
5'10".
Right. Yeah. So, and I think Diggs is 6 or 6'1", but now you've got this kid who's 6'4", 6'5". You've got Dalton Kincaid who's 6'4". Like there's Dawson Knox who's 6'5". There's just a lot of mass. There's a lot of big guys that are out there. So I like this pick a lot.
So I do too. And we could talk about the 7th picks, 7th round picks, Nick Broker, Alex Austin.
I don't know. If you want to, you can. I don't know that.
No, I just think that, it's more competition on the offensive line. The kid looks like Nick would be a practice squad player, whatever their plans are there. Just size wise, he could get a little bigger. If he's a guard, he's went into 305. Looked a little bit lean to me. And then Alex Austin, the question mark there is there wasn't a safety, right? There wasn't. Yeah. With the draft in the books and looking at what they did in undrafted free agents, we didn't see much of defense. We saw 1 defensive tackle from Alabama, no edge. I don't think we saw a running back, another tackle from Florida. Like I mentioned, there's work to do on the front 4.
And I was wrong. I forgot about Hartley or Hardy, whichever way you want to pronounce it, but he's like 5'6". Okay. But I still firmly believe that he's going to be a punt returner, right. Kick returner. But that's what I think. So
what I did, what was important to me too, is where is our draft regarded in comparison to the rest of the East and the premier teams in the AFC that we have to beat. So I went to I'm not the guy. I'm not digesting 15 hours of film on all these players and then going back and looking at my notes and but what I was encouraged with is across multiple platforms that I researched, we had better grades for our 6 picks than everybody in our division. And we were as good as Cincinnati, as good as Indy and the Ravens, and looks like better than Kansas City. The Jags had 13 picks and did not get a great grade. So compared to what everybody else did by, the who's who, the pundits, whomever, we fared better than anyone in the division. And I went back and I looked at all those players. It was hard, obviously, for Miami because they only had the 4 picks because, they were paying off Jalen Ramsey and then they got the tampering. But then to go with a running back, when you already have Mostert and Williams, I'm really encouraged by that, even though obviously, our division is super competitive.
Very.
Over another thing, my son is at UCLA. 4 of his teammates were drafted, which was fantastic. 2 offensive linemen, the running back and quarterback, DTR. And of course, I can't say it enough. Super proud that Bijan Robinson took over the mantle from me for earliest pick from a kid from Tucson, Arizona. And I'm just, thrilled for Bijan and his family. It's just amazing.
Can't believe how high he went, but yes, that is, especially to the team that didn't have a quarterback. They got Bijan Robinson, and
you know what? So my initial thought when you said that is, obviously they know something we don't, which is what this whole damn thing boils down to. No, not as a quarterback.
They're gonna run the veer.
I guess I always want to give deference, right? Until you have Tom Donahoe and Greg Williams, then you can legitimately say, what in the hell is going on here? But I try to give deference to real football people when they make their decisions. So
that's funny.
Yeah,
that's funny. I was going to ask you a question. What were we talking about before we got into a little bit of the sillies there?
We were talking about how our competition did in the East and the AFC overall. Denver had the worst draft in most opinions, with Green Bay not far behind. A lot of the other ones I didn't even look at because I only care about
the Buffalo Bills. No, for all intents and purposes, it was a draft that I'm probably more excited about this draft than I've been the last couple drafts. As much as I liked Kaiir Elam and felt we had a huge need at corner, the way the draft class kind of not fell through, but the way that it played out just kind of left me. I'm still kind of in the, okay, so is it Christian Benford? Is it Kaiir Elam? Is Benford going to move to safety? Like, who's going to be the starter there? Yada, yada, yada. But I'm excited about these guys, and I'm excited. I too looked at some grades. For the most part, the Bills graded out pretty well. It comes down to just guys thinking they know what the Bills need. Well, the Bills really needed a running back. It's like, well, do they? I'm not so sure. Like, there was who was I watching?
And that's why I looked across. I looked at some people who had a predictive idea of what they needed. Did it align with what I thought? Are there still holes? I think because DN, DT, and linebacker. Well, I could say linebacker was addressed. It still begs to me that we're going to see a different defense and attitude this year. I'm not smart enough to know exactly, the calls, the coverages and the leverages that they play. But I hope and pray, that we're coming downhill a lot more, and that we have, we're going to do a little bit more that confuses quarterbacks and offensive linemen,
Yep. So game plan to your opponent that you're talking about, like, right?
Well, not game plan, it's philosophy, really. I mean, we've already seen that Leslie Frazier didn't really want a game plan based on previous game success or otherwise that teams played against our upcoming opponent.
Yeah.
So it's more of a dictatorial type of attitude. Like, we are going to force this to happen. We're going to go press man, single high safety. We're going to empty the middle of the field and say we're going to get there before you can dump it off. And, the safety come up, make a tackle for 8 yards. Good for you. You got your first down. But we are here to be seen and to wreak havoc.
Very good. So that's pretty much all that we're going to cover in this here episode. We're going to let you guys get some of your time back for this episode. We're not going to go the full hour. What should everybody that is interested in the show expect? When are we coming back? Are we coming back full time in August? What are we doing? Like when training camp starts, what do you want to do?
I think Joe and I react to market conditions. Should there be a incredible signing or move, we're going to talk about how that affects. We'll schedule an impromptu show, just be ready, Bills Mafia. But I think we'll probably do a preseason cut, and then maybe 1 or 2 shows during the preseason time. And, hopefully by then we have our sponsors set. If anybody out there knows of somebody that wants to load up on the Off Tackle Show with Joe Miller, then, hey, we'd love to talk to him.
Yeah, I think
we love our sponsors. I think we want them back.
I think last year we started first or second week of August. So at the very latest, probably I would expect us back second week of August. But that's all I've got. So super exciting time. The draft was great. I had a good time watching it. A lot of twists, a lot of turns, a lot of crazy stuff this year, which was great. guys going when you didn't expect, trades going when you didn't expect. The Falcons getting 2 and 3 like back to back was crazy to me. The Detroit Lions did some crazy things, and like you said, or we talked about Bijan Robinson going as early as he went. All good stuff. Very good draft. Looking forward to an entertaining year, and what we got, rookie mini camp coming up, and then more OTAs, mini camps, blah 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 into summer. And then I'm gonna say it here. I'm gonna say it now because I say it on my show all the time. Don't wish your summer away. Don't wish your summer away. Looking forward to Bills football. I did it for a long time. Like June would come, and it was like, can September just get here? Come on, September. And I'd wish the summer away. So
it's the opposite of a player.
Right.
The player's like, could July just be a little further away?
Do not wish. Enjoy the summer, and
enjoy your summer, Joe Miller. Listen
right.
to the wise man, Joe Miller.
Right, and then take it all in when it happens. But for me, for John Fina, for Buffalo Rumblings, appreciate you guys again. Tomorrow evening, Monday, I think at 8:00 before Intentional Grounding with Sterling, there'll be a special overreaction pod with myself and Jerry Ostrowski, John's former teammate. But John, any final words?
Yeah, head up, Buffalo Bills fans. We got a good team. We have a new opportunity this year. We had a really good draft. Be optimistic. Don't wish your summer away. I love that. In Arizona, we wish our summers away, starting today. It got hot. But by and large, thanks everybody for hanging out, listening to us. The show went longer than we thought. We always think it's going to be short, but with the content that and the insight that Joe has, we love it.
Don't you patronize me. Ladies and gentlemen, for Joe Miller on the Off Tackle Show and John Fina. We'll talk to you guys later. Love you guys. Go Bills.
Go Bills.